today. Over the weekend, UFC, Vancouver, there was a travesty. There was a crime that was committed. One man by the name of Kyle Nelson was robbed the finish that he so earned. Another man was fouled in the co-main event, and the situation was handled terribly. But more importantly, especially to your boy Matt, an entire population of gamblers and bettors took an L, all due to one man, and that man's name is Big Dan Miragliotta. All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy Matt, and we are here to talk about the travesty that went down over the weekend where Kyle Nelson was in a fight with Matt Frevola and was robbed the finish, and more importantly, the gambling population was robbed the finish. Let's get into this. So, no shade to Matt Frevola, but this is the God's honest truth. Matt Frevola's chin divorced him. A few years ago, Matt Frevola had a chin. They were in a happy relationship. But then that chin started to feel neglected. Then that chin started to feel a low self-worth. That chin had self-esteem issues. And that chin decided it was time to leave Matt Frevola. And that chin, it filed for divorce. That chin left, and Matt Frevola was sent to the octagon, lonely and single, without a chin, to face Kyle Nelson. Now, shout out to DraftKings. Shout out to Underdog Fantasy. Shout out to Prize Picks. All of us, we know that Matt Frevola's chin divorced him. So with that being said, we all bet on the fight. We bet that Kyle Nelson was going to go out there and Kyle Nelson was going to defeat Matt Frevola via knockout or TKO stoppage. That was the only play for that fight, right? That was the only play, right? Or you could have went Matt Frevola if you really believed in him was going to go out there and maybe get a knockout. Who knows? But the smart money says you bet on Kyle Nelson to go out there and finish Matt Frevola via TKO or KO. At the end of the first round, Kyle Nelson lands an overhand right that sends Matt Frevola crashing down to the earth. No chin to help him or save him. And Kyle Nelson gets on top of him, starts punching him. He's hitting him solid square in the head. Matt Frevola is not defending himself. He's not doing anything. And that's where the crime occurred. Because Dan Miragliotta comes in and separates the men with 3 seconds left in the round. So everyone is thinking, oh, the round's over. We cashed this ticket. You know, Kyle Nelson goes out there, defeats Matt Frevola via TKO stoppage. You know, knockout, however you want to say it. So we thought we was on our way. You know what I'm saying? We thought, man, this is a fight earlier in the night. I'm already getting paid. This is going to be a good night. You know what I'm talking about? Bro. Dan Miragliotta, then, even to the shock of the commentary, doesn't wave off the fight and says that's the end of the round. That's the end of the round. Now, none of that makes any sense at all because Matt Frevola was getting his whole brains beat in. His whole brain fell out and rolled across the octagon. You know what I'm saying? He's not defending himself at all. And Dan Miragliotta knows he waves off that fight because Matt Frevola was donezo. Now, I don't know if after he waved it off, he saw that awkward glare in Matt Frevola's eyes. I don't know if he was like, man, this guy, he ain't got no chin. His chin divorced him. I feel bad for him. I don't know what happened, but Dan Miragliotta had a change of heart, lied to the commission and everybody else, and acted like he thought it was the end of the round. He thought he heard the bell. What's that I hear? Was that the bell? Man, Dan Miragliotta, you didn't hear no bell. You know you didn't hear no bell. Over there talking about you heard a bell. Where was the bell? Bell was ringing in your head. Bell was ringing in Matt Frevola's head. Matt Frevola was passed out. So what I'm saying is, bro, what we doing here, man? Dan Miragliotta out here robbing people. And then poor Kyle Nelson, you know, he literally... This man thought that the fight was over, thought he won by knockout in the first round. He's hyped up. Now he has to compose himself and go back out there. And he admitted as much. He ended up winning via decision. But he admitted as much that he blew his entire wad right there in the first round. You know what I'm saying? Right there in the first round. He had nothing left. So he had to somehow reach deep down, and his chin hasn't divorced him. So he might have relied a little bit on his chin. He had to reach deep down and pull out some sort of energy to try to finish this fight because he thought it was already over. The man's adrenaline had already spiked. He thought it was a wrap. No, not so fast. Clearly, the fight goes on for 3 rounds. Finally, Kyle Nelson wins via decision. In my opinion, Dan Miragliotta had the over. Dan Miragliotta had the over. He had the over 2.5 rounds. We all know it. We know it, Big Dan. Big Dan, we know you was betting, and you had the over 2.5 rounds on that fight, and that's why you was trying to get it to keep going. And that's ridiculous. And it's a travesty, and you robbed Kyle Nelson, and I hope Dana White makes this right. I don't know what Dana White's going to do to Dan Miragliotta, but give Kyle Nelson some extra bread, man. Slide him some of your weekend cash. You big money, Dana. You up $400 million. Slide that man some of your weekend spending money, and let's keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? Now, let's get into the co-main event. Kevin Holland. Mike Mallet. Okay? So Mike Mallet throws a kick. It hits Kevin Holland low. Now, it's questionable because the initial impact of the kick wasn't in the low blow, no region, right? But the kick kind of grazed upward, maybe downward, hit the no region, and a foul occurred. Dan Miragliotta goes ahead, pauses the fight. But here's the thing. Previously, maybe not even 2 minutes before, probably some seconds before, Mike Mallet had already gotten called out for a low blow to Kevin Holland. So this is 2 low blows in less than 2 minutes apart from each other, right? Now, the Canadian fans, Mike Mallet, he's Canadian. They're there in Vancouver. The Canadian fans are upset because they're watching the replay. They see the initial impact of the kick of the second low blow. They feel like it wasn't a low blow. But, we have the benefit of slow motion. We're sitting there at home. We're looking and we're like, look, that was something happened there. There was something that hit the no region. Also, Kevin Holland is the kind of dude, he really didn't stand to gain anything from faking that, right? Like, I know some people are acting like he faked the low blow. He didn't really stand to gain anything because whether you believe Mike Mallet was winning the fight at that point, it was still early on. And at any time, Kevin Holland could have turned it around because even with being injured, he hung with Mike Mallet for the rest of the fight. You know what I'm saying? It was clear he lost it, but he hung with him. So then, when Dan Miragliotta calls his foul, you're thinking, okay, Dan Miragliotta is probably going to take a point. He takes no point. He gives another warning to Mike Mallet, but the real thing is Kevin Holland could not get himself together. His nether region was hurting, you know what I'm saying? So, as Dan is telling him how much more time he's got, what ends up happening is Kevin Holland it's looking like he's not going to be able to continue. And he goes through the full 5 minute time period. Finally, he's going to try to force himself to continue. Now, meanwhile, the fighter, we all know fighters. If you've been watching fighting for a long time, you know fighters aren't going to quit. They're not going to just give up. You know what I'm saying? Not all of them are Aljamain Sterling. But they're not just going to do that, right? So sometimes your corner or the referee, that's what they're there for, is to help protect these fighters and to step in and call it off. It was clear Kevin Holland was compromised and shouldn't have continued fighting. But Dan Miragliotta is too spooked, too scared to call off the fight. And then he has the doctor come in there. Like, what is the doctor gonna check? So let's get back to it. So 5 minutes is up. The 5 minute time period allowed for this particular foul. He's asking Kevin Holland if he can continue. Clearly, Kevin Holland can't, but he's going to try to force himself to. They start the fight. There's only a few seconds left in that round. Kevin Holland just kind of evades Mike Mount the whole time while holding his nether region. And that round ends. Then Kevin Holland goes over to the side. You know, his crew is trying to calm him down, trying to, bring his heart rate down, bring his breathing down. Meanwhile, he's still complaining about this injury. So then Dan Miragliotta, it's time for the round to start. The 1 minute between rounds is ended. It's time for the round to start. Kevin Holland is not trying to get up off the stool. Kevin Holland is not trying to fight. He eventually stands up, but he's not trying to fight. Dan Miragliotta is like, can you continue? Kevin Holland's not saying anything. Dan's like, are you going to be able to continue? Kevin Holland is not speaking. He's playing the game now. He's buying himself more time. Meanwhile, here comes, also he's desperately hurt, right? When I'm not saying that he's faking at all. He really is hurt. When I say he's trying to buy himself more time, he's hoping that his nether region is going to quit hurting so he can continue this fight. Meanwhile, Dan Miragliotta is still not willing to make a call on if this fight should continue or end, so he calls the doctor in. And you're wondering, how's this doctor going to check Kevin Holland's nether region, and can they show it on TV? Because we don't want to see. And so the next thing you know, doctor comes in. He's talking to Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's not answering him on if he can continue. Dan Miragliotta's still asking him. He's not answering him. At this point, any good referee would have waved the fight off. And granted, Kevin Holland might have been upset, but deep down inside, especially in his nether regions, he would have been happy that he wouldn't have had to continue and risk more injury. But that doesn't happen. Dan Miragliotta doesn't know what to do, so he just continues the fight. And Kevin Holland has to go out there for the next 2 rounds after that, do next to nothing, clearly still worried about his nether regions, clearly still compromising in pain, and had to continue to fight. So again, like I just said for the last fight in which Dan Miragliotta had the over 2.5. Dan Miragliotta had the over 2.5 on this fight too. Dan Miragliotta is betting on fights. Big Dan, you can't tell me you're not Big Dan. Dan Miragliotta, the referee for 7.7 sold rights deal to Paramount for the referee for the UFC, is betting on the over. He bet the over 2.5. He could not have that fight in before then, so he stretched it out. And I'm sick of it. Kevin Holland's nether regions are sick of it. Matt Frevola's chin is happy that Matt Frevola took a loss, but he could have took the loss earlier. Kyle Nelson is sad because he was robbed of his first round TKO win. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think about this travesty that Dan Miragliotta committed on Saturday night, this crime, and he needs to be brought to justice. Let me know what you think about that. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I check you next time. Peace.